Split was one of the original 3 maps that launched with Valorant, and over the years it's gone through lots of changes and even been removed from the map rotation. But let's be honest, people still hate it. It's congested, it's tight, and a lot of the time it feels like you just have no options. But honestly, that's not a bad thing. Split is a simple map, and you need to treat it that way. If you don't know me, my name is Plops. I'm an Immortal Valorant player who enjoys coaching and analyzing Valorant. And in this video, I'm going to teach you how to properly play Split, everything from the best agents, how to default, and attack and defense tips that help you win more rounds. Let's start with the agents. For controllers, Omen is commonly used because his flash is super strong and can reach a lot of parts of the map. And its TPs are really good because it gets you into good off angles, allows you to play aggressively, and allows you to deal with the elevation that this map has. If you're playing Premier or watch VCT, you'll commonly see Viper as well paired with Omen. This is because of her wall and ability to lurk really hard and create question marks around the map just from using her wall or her smoke that she can put up anytime during the round. For Duelist, Raze, Jett, Yoru, and Neon are all super viable for this map. They all allow for some sort of dive and distance closer. Raze's kit is really good at breaking util and flushing out the enemy players who are playing in ratty spots. Jett is self-sufficient when diving in, can op very aggressively, and is just really good for getting to those elevated points like Omen. Yoru can also quickly rotate from A to B with his TPs, and his flashes are really good for popping if you're just trying to lurk up or just contact something. And his clone is also really good for breaking the Senti util or getting past the chokes to allow it to take the first bullet. For initiators, Fade or Sky are pretty strong in this map. Their dodge can clear a lot of the aggressive angles that people might be playing in or holding. Their util is also really good for giving information, which can help reclear or notify where the enemy team is playing, like the eye or the flashes. For Sentinels, Cypher is really your best pick on this map. His anchor and info ability is just unmatched. His camera can spot multiple angles really passively and can be put in really high spots so the enemy team might not even see it if they're not looking up. His mid trip is really busted because the enemy team needs to break it, and if they aren't, you kind of just get free info on mid. Cages are really good for one way and cutting off angles if you're trying to lurk, and it's just really good for both attack and defense. Let's move to defaulting. This map is not complicated to default. You want to start with one person towards B to hold the push or jiggle to find where the enemy is playing, 3 towards mid to break the mid trip and force util out of the enemy, and try to find a pick or space into either heaven or vents. You should have one person also towards A who's making noise, threatening that they could cross the smoke, so that way they could either take a fight towards ramps or towards site. This kind of forces 2 people to be on A at all times because you could just go into heaven or just straight onto site and need to be watching these angles pretty well. When you're defaulting this map, whether you go A or B through a heaven or vent solely depends on what info the main players get. If the B main player is able to make a lot of presence towards main and take a lot of space, it can make taking sight from heaven a lot easier because the main player has reduced the amount of angles that you have to clear. If the main player walks up a little bit more, they can see into heaven or rafters, and meaning that the person in heaven is either not there or somewhere on site or playing stairs or deep in hell. This makes taking sight a lot easier because this way you don't have to look at every angle that's staring at you when you're jumping out of heaven. But the main players do need to be careful of someone swinging you from sight or backside while you're trying to walk up, so just be wary of that. If your A player is able to cross towards ramp and get a good amount of info and have ramp control, your team can split through vent, and this is because taking heaven will be a lot easier. You just need to focus on A rafter and spawn and not have to worry about ramps because your teammate's there. Doing this will make flooding onto site a lot easier since you've eliminated one of the main ways the enemy team can kill you, which is from heaven. Let's move to some attack tips. Don't tunnel vision on A. A can be a very frustrating site to take because of the screen spam, heaven swing out, and fighting site at the same time can feel very overwhelming. Leaving someone in main or just outside of the main smoke can ease the amount of pressure. Essentially, this person's job is to shoot anyone who swings from heaven or from screen. This allows for your duelist or whoever's clearing sight to only focus on the people whose sight without having to worry about getting shot from the back. If you are the duelist, you should be asking someone on your team to watch these angles because it's very common for people to swing out, or even better to throw a nade or a molly so that the way they physically can't swing out. But be careful, while you're holding these angles, be aware of a sky flash or your flash because people don't normally swing dry. Tip number 2, use more support on site. Everyone knows about the sewer stun or flash to get ramps control, but people often forget that you can do the exact same thing for site. It makes taking the site a lot easier for the people going in. I've heard that people don't like to do it because they don't want to waste util, but quite frankly, this is kind of stupid. While you do want to have your util hit someone, a majority of the time it won't. But what this will do is make the fights more in your favor for your teammates. On A, there's 3 spots that people can play: behind the screen, in the corner, or in elbow. And flashing or stunning this gets 2 of the 3 angles. And if your team is going in and it hits someone, that makes the fight a lot easier for the teammate. And if there isn't someone there, your team can quickly whip around and look at elbow. This will also condition the enemy team to not play in these spots because your team is using Yuto to clear them. So later in the half, if you don't want to use your Yuto and use it more towards elbow or heaven, then people aren't going to play in those spots because you've been using Yuto to clear, so they're just not going to play there. 3. Taking B Heaven properly. B Heaven is hard to take because of the amount of angles that you have to deal with. That's why using a flash or a stun can make this very easy, but people still die because they don't know how to take it. When you're swinging after the flash, your pre-aim should be towards the rafter because it's the only spot not being hit by the Yuto, and it's a common spot for people to play because they're going to be able to avoid all the Yuto and not get caught out. And when you go in, you want to be looking at rafters first and not the places that people could have been hit by the Yuto. Once you visually see that rafters is clear, then you can go and kill the people that are hit by Yuto. Remember, these people are either flashed or stunned, so they're not going to be able to kill you. However, this person on rafter will be immediately able to kill you and be trying to support their teammate. People often tunnel vision on the person who's getting hit by Yuto and forget about this spot and just die. Taking a quick second to look and be prepared for this angle will make taking it a lot easier. Tip 4. Leave yourself options later in the round. If your team is taking B Heaven, having someone lurking in vents gives you a good pivot later in the round. Sometimes you're not able to force out of Heaven because the enemy team has already rotated, or you keep on getting smoked off, making it harder for you to actually go out. Having someone in vents, A main, or even B main gives your team options later in the round to regroup and hit as a team. Even if your team leaves and runs through vent, as long as you get the trade on your teammate, the site should be a lot easier to take because everyone's already rotated towards B. So leave yourself options later in the round because the original plan's not going to always work, and this map has a lot of chokes and you're going to get stopped eventually. Let's move over to defense. Reclaying ramps. If the enemy team is taking A site well, or you're not able to hold the site, that's okay. In return, you should be either trying to control ramps or retake that spot first before you go to site. If you're quickly able to reclear ramps in main, it allows you to pinch the site a lot easier. Teams often do a ramps push, but after they take the site, they don't leave anyone there or only leave one person. If your team is waiting to retake, you can have 2 to 3 people go and try and start to fight or retake ramps and start the retake going. Team is rotating, so that way you can quickly pinch as soon as you get there. This results in you either getting a pick or allows you to get into a lot of space and pushes the enemy team into really congested spots where your team is able to clear those spaces a lot easier. Tip 2. Taking B main. The enemy team is trying to split towards B, holding Heaven can be kind of hard. Rather than getting pitched on site, you should be trying to proactively take B main space. This way you can either control the fights a little bit more or at least stall the push a little bit while your team tries to rotate. Because you're better off getting a kill or value if you're fighting B main where you can flash or swing properly rather than getting hit by Yuto by 3 people jumping out of Heaven like the fucking Avengers. This way you can increase the chance of you getting a kill before you die or at least stall the side take so that way your team can rotate. Tip 3. Don't be scared to fight the mains. Lots of teams don't use their Yuto to clear main and just run it in, or at most use a flash or a dog. Using Yuto like a stun or a flash at the beginning of a round can get you an aggressive pick that can be really helpful, especially if you've been struggling to hold the sites. This will either result in you getting into a good 4v5 or get early map control that the enemy team will need to use more Yuto in order to clear, which will make their site hits a little weaker, which means that you'll be able to hold the site a little bit easier. This map is not complicated, so don't confuse yourself. Learn how to use these tips and when to apply them. And trust me, you'll be winning more rounds, which will lead to you winning more games.